What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be all about the long range meta. I'm going to go over a new feature, probably the coolest, most detailed feature I've ever built for TGD. It's going to completely change the Warzone landscape, I think. So basically what that is it's an AI tool that will look at all the combinations of all weapons and attachments and basically just spit out the best builds for every gun, for every scenario, and rank them all appropriately. It's also going to be completely customizable based on how you want to play. So it's a pretty unique thing, and I think it's really going to change the game, honestly, for how loadouts are built as a whole. So in this video, I'm going to go over all the results from the current AI meta tool that I've built. It's not on TGD yet. It's coming soon, but the code does work. We still have a few challenges that I have to overcome in order to get this live on TGD, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as I go through it. But we're going to go over all of the different weapons that it spit out for the long-range meta today in this video. So when we actually launch this meta finding tool, I don't even have a finished name for it yet. We've got a bunch of good ideas for name, but we don't have it actually named. It's going to launch with basically long-range automatic weapon meta. So that's like all your assault rifles, some of the battle rifles, any of the weapons that are automatic. LMGs obviously will fit in that pool as well. And then for close range, it's going to be basically all the close range guns because they are all automatic. It's a little bit tricky to create a tool that can mix in semi-auto weapons with this as well. So I'm not going to do that yet. It's going to happen eventually, but just not yet. It's also going to have sniper support. So those will be the three build types. You'll be able to select the game type you play, whether it's solos, duos, trios, or quads. You'll be able to select different things like how you play. So if you're more of an aggressive player, you can kind of weight things towards being more aggressive or more movement based. If you're a slower player, you can weight more towards TTK, and ADS time obviously would be less important because you'd be ADS more often. So there'll be all kinds of customizability for all of this, which is what I think is so cool about it. It's not just a static thing. So you've gotten static recommendations from YouTubers and websites and things for so long. And what makes this so cool is that now you'll be able to just figure it out for yourself. You just fill out all the different things, how you want to play, press calculate, and it's going to take a little while to run. It'll take between 10 seconds and probably 10 minutes to run and calculate all the builds out for you. That's one of the challenges that we're working on. Is I've literally made it 30 times faster over the last month in terms of the code, how fast it runs, but we still have to basically offload all of the code onto an external serverless host and then send the results back to TGD. So I still have to figure that part out, but the code itself works really well already, and you're going to see that today as I go through these builds. But it's just going to be a revolutionary tool, I think, for the community because of customizability and all of the instantaneous best builds that you can get for every single weapon. So my plan for the rest of this video, for the top 5 guns, so you can see here, this is all the weapons, their absolute best build, scored out of 10 from my AI meta finding tool. So the Cronen Squall with its best build is currently the meta as far as my meta finder is concerned. I do want to say that it's still a work in progress. It's not finished. I'm still training the algorithm, tuning the different parameters in the algorithm. As I learn more and as I work on the code more, these could change a little bit, but it's already working very well, and I wanted to show you guys this and get you the build. So for the top 5, I'm going to do the top build with tunings, and then I will also show just the best build for the rest of these later in the video, not with tunings or anything though, just because I want you guys to have them if you want them. So like I said, work in progress, but I wanted to show you this because I think it's super cool, and it should really change the game. I'm going to start with the worst of the top 5 best weapons in the game. So number 5 was the HCR56. This got a 9.66 out of 10, so very close to the best build in the game, best gun in the game. These are the attachments. So we've got the X10 ported 290, FTAC Gripper 56, high velocity, and Stip 40 grip. And what's really cool about this AI meta tool is it doesn't just look at one thing. It is looking at every stat in the entire game, and it's weighting all of them and balancing them out. And it's not like linearly weighting either. So it's not like if, say, I tell it that recoil is the most, when I'm training it, I tell it recoil is the most important stat. It's not like it's going to put every single attachment to reduce recoil. It's going to look at all the other stats as well and weight them appropriately and balance them all out and come out with the best possible build for that weapon. Again, it's not perfect yet, but it's very good and it's getting very close. So this is the build for the HCR56. We got the X10 ported 290, purely vertical recoil because the HCR 56 has a decent amount of vertical recoil. FPSKrieger for more of that visual recoil. Screen shake, things like that, helps with that a lot. And it also helps with recoil and aiming stability, which are both very important for long range. High velocity ammunition, basically just the most valuable attachment for long range that there is. Just helps you hit your shots a lot easier. And then the Stip 40 grip for, again, more recoil control because this has a decent amount of actual physical recoil that you have to correct for. So tunings on the X10 ported 290, plus 0.52 ounces towards recoil stabilization, minus 0.2 inches towards idle stability. The FPSKrieger, I'll just do this one so you guys can see how it works. So we're going to go for recoil stabilization just because we want maximum stabilization. So the optimal point looks like it's about right there for trade-offs. And then we want the best idle stability that we can get as well. So we'll slide towards idle stability and look for the optimal point. Looks like right there. So plus 0.28 inches towards aiming idle stability. High velocity, plus 0.36 grams towards damage range. Recoil smoothness would be a good option too. Honestly, this one was a toss-up. Those are both important stats. And then because on this build, high velocity is our only bullet velocity attachment, I'm going to tune for bullet velocity instead of recoil steadiness on the bottom, so plus 3.77 grams. And then for the rear grip, we're tuning for extra recoil steadiness again, plus 0.65 ounces. And then better aiming idle stability as well, so plus 0.25 inches. As for the fifth attachment, it's obviously going to be an optic, so you just pick whatever optic that you like the most. That's going to be the case for all the guns in the video. I'm just going to let you guys pick what optic you like the most. I think most of these probably are going to tend towards the lower zoom, like the 1X optics, just because the visual recoil in this game is much stronger, so it's a lot easier to see your target with those lower zoom optics. Next up is another variant of the AUG, so this is the STB556. This got a 9.68, so 0.02 higher rating than that HCR that we just looked at. So the attachments here are the Echoless 80 muzzle. This is a suppressor, the 24-inch Bruin S620 barrel, high velocity ammunition, and 42 round mag. Again, optic. You can select that for yourself. For tunings on the barrel, we have plus 0.37 towards recoil steadiness and plus 0.13 inches towards damage range. On the suppressor, plus 0.95 ounces towards recoil smoothness, plus 0.55 inches towards bullet velocity. And then on high velocity ammunition, we've got minus 0.23 grams towards recoil smoothness, and then plus 5.81 grain towards bullet velocity. Next up is the ISO Hemlock. So this got a 9.78 out of 10. This was the meta before Season 3 as far as my meta finder was concerned for the default values. This is all it starts with like my default training, so it'll spit out, if you don't change anything, it'll spit out what I think is tuned correctly for the meta. But you'll be able to, like I said, custom tune this for however you want to play, as well as the squad size and the mode you're playing in, and maybe even the map eventually. So there's going to be tons of customization that you can do to this. But I want to mention here real quick with the ISO. So you'll notice it doesn't have the FPSKrieger on here, which is an extremely popular attachment. It just makes the visual recoil feel a lot better. So this is just the best build for this gun. There are 40,000 other builds that this calculates, and all of those are going to be within like 0.1. Not all of them, but the best ones, like the top 100, will be within 0.1 of this build. So the FPSKrieger, I think, shows up in like 4th place as the 4th best build for this gun, according to how I've tuned it. So it's just really cool. You'll be able to, when I actually send back the results to TGD for you guys to see after you've calculated this for yourself, you'll probably have the top 100 builds per gun or something like that you can scroll through and see how it ranked them, and see all those different attachments and how it came out for you specifically. But for this gun, we've got the Fielder T50, Echoless 80, high velocity ammunition, and 45 round mag. So this has really, really good bullet velocity from these attachments. The recoil is really manageable, which is why it doesn't show up with the FPSKrieger, just because the visual recoil on this is already really low. So the meta finder looking at that saying, oh, the visual recoil is already really low, we're going to stack other stats that might actually be more important since it's already really good at the visual recoil. Tuning wise, on the Fielder T50, we've got plus 0.15 pounds towards recoil steadiness, plus 0.15 inches towards damage range. For the suppressor, plus 0.45 ounces towards recoil smoothness, plus 1 inch towards bullet velocity. high velocity ammunition, plus 0.29 grams towards damage range, and then plus 4.35 grain. I think that's the GR stands for, grain, towards bullet velocity. Again, optic you can pick for yourself, whichever one you like. It varies. Some people like the Schlager, some people like using the 1Xs. It's just not included in this because I want you guys to be able to pick that for yourself, because it's more of a feel thing than actually like this is the best. Next up, we have the RPK. So the RPK scored at 9.86 out of 10. 10 out of 10 again is the Cronen Squall. That'll be up next. That's the new battle rifle. So we've got Polar Fire S suppressor, FTAC Ripper, high velocity, and the FSS Olay 0 LE laser. So again, like I said, this MetaFinder takes everything into account about the weapon. So for this gun specifically, it was like, oh, it already has good recoil, but it has really bad ADS time. So that's why it ends up with this lasers, because ADS time is still important. It's trying to get this more like an AR. So it's been trained to think like me, which is what I think is really cool. Is I've tuned the algorithm so it will spit out basically what I think is the best build for every weapon, and I don't have to do any work. I just send it, and it literally ranks every single attachment combination for every single weapon and spits out what the best is. Actually spits out all of them, but then it ranks them for you, obviously. So for this build, for tunings here on the Polar Fire S, we've got recoil smoothness and aim down sight speed. For some reason, this tuning just didn't do very much and kind of just had a lot of negatives either way, so I just left that one right in the middle. Then for the aiming stability versus bullet velocity, we went plus 0.29 inches towards bullet velocity. For the FTAC Ripper, we went plus 0.46 ounces towards recoil stabilization and plus 0.15 inches towards aiming idle stability. High velocity ammunition, plus 0.41 grams towards damage range, plus 2.9 grain bullet velocity. And then for the laser, we have plus 0.34 ounces aim locking steadiness, plus 44.42 feet zeroing distance for aiming idle stability. And this is still a beast. The RPK never stopped being great. They kept nerfing it just a tiny bit at a time, and now they've nerfed a bunch of other things down a little bit. So essentially, it's one of the best weapons again, just because it only got little nerfs, and then everything else got nerfed down, and it was never really a bad choice. So it's back for sure being one of the absolute top weapons in the game. Last up here, we have the Cronen Squall. So the Cronen Squall has quite a bit of vertical recoil. It also has quite a bit of horizontal recoil, but the vertical recoil can be kind of hard to control. So because of that, the AI MetaFinder chose the Tempest GH50 muzzle. This is the maximum vertical recoil reduction muzzle, along with the FTAC Ripper, high velocity ammunition, and 50 round drum. Pretty standard. And then pick your own optic again. For tunings, we've got plus 0.67 ounces towards recoil stabilization. Recoil stabilization is super important stat. That's more of like the visual recoil, gun shake kind of stuff that can be really difficult to quantify, but super important. That's why the FTAC Ripper is such a good attachment. It's like the Commando foregrip from Warzone 1, basically, why that was so good. Plus 0.28 inches towards gun kick control. Again, recoil is pretty violent on this gun, so we're trying to reduce that as much as possible. That's why we go towards gun kick. FTAC Ripper, again, recoil stabilization super important, so plus 0.62 ounces towards recoil stabilization, plus 0.21 inches towards aiming idle stability. And then high velocity, we're going towards recoil again, same reasons, minus 0.56 grams towards recoil smoothness, and then plus 9 grain for bullet velocity. Because this is the only bullet velocity attachment, again, that's why we're going to go for bullet velocity instead of recoil on the tuning. 50 round drum, and then pick your optic. This one, like I've said 5 times now, has pretty bad recoil, so I would go with maybe like a 1X optic on this, probably is what I would try. But yeah, those are the top 5 builds for each gun. Like I said, there's going to be this gun scored a 10 out of 10 with this build. This is the best build according to the MetaFinder in the game right now. The MetaFinder is not perfect. I'm still tuning it, still tweaking it, but it is very good. And the RPK came second at 9.86, so there's probably, I don't know, there's probably 20 Cronen Squall builds that are better than the best RPK build, but in this video I just wanted to give you the best build for the top 5 weapons rather than, you know, the top 5 builds that are all for the Cronen Squall. I didn't think that made sense. But once you guys get the MetaFinder in your hands, probably in, I don't know, 2 weeks to a month, once we actually get it launched, we have a lot of work left to do on it. You'll be able to see all those builds, and you'll be able to tweak it how you want, tweak the stats. But yeah, I think it's going to be a crazy, crazy tool. It's going to kind of change the whole game for how people build loadouts. I'm really worried about creators just using it and not crediting me, because this has been months and months of work. So if you're a creator and you're watching this, you're welcome to use this for your builds, of course, but just please credit me. That's all I ask. But yeah, let's go look at the rest of the guns and their best builds now. All right, so here are the scores and the top builds for the rest of the automatic weapons. There are some that are excluded still, like the SO14 and different battle rifles or marksman rifles that are turned to automatic in-game. That is an option. I haven't checked all those to make sure like recoil plots and everything are correct. And like I said, this looks at everything when it calculates these builds. So everything data-wise has to be basically bulletproof and completely perfect, or it won't calculate correctly. So I just haven't verified those to make sure everything's good there. So that's why they're not included. It's also difficult, like I mentioned early on, to mix in semi-auto weapons into this. So I still kind of have to figure that out. That's why this is focused only on automatic weapons for now. But yeah, these are the top builds for the rest of the guns. Sokin was close to making it, 9.63 out of 10. Chimera and Kastov 74U, those are both kind of like SMG AR hybrids. So that's why they scored so poorly in the long-range builds meta finding. But like I said, you'll be able to do this for basically any situation. Sniper support, close range, long range, all kinds of scenarios. But yeah, these are the top builds that it spit out for the rest of the weapons. Like I said, we still have some hurdles to overcome in order to launch this. It's probably going to be a month still to finish this up. I have to figure out a bunch of different things that I've never had to do before. So got to get that done, but then we'll launch it after that. I think it's going to be pretty game-changing for the community to be able to just instantly see the top builds for any gun, for any scenario, for how you play specifically. It's just going to be kind of game-changing, and I've had fun building it. I'm really, really excited to launch this for the community. It's the best thing I've ever built for sure. I've done a lot of stuff, but this is kind of like the end game feature. This is like everything else was to help you analyze. This is kind of just like, okay, all that's done for you. Here are the best weapons. So it's kind of like eating into my own YouTube content, my own website in terms of all the features I've built for the website, because they just don't even need to be used anymore because this just does it all for you. But I am doing this knowing that. So I still think it's worth it. And I think it's going to be huge for the community. But that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I can't wait to release this for you, and I will see you in the next video.